Boom! According to that, I am live. Welcome. This is Tokyo Tonight. My name is Hugo Simon. I'm going to move the screen over here so I can see you all where I'm looking at the camera at the moment, what's going on. Hope you're all well. It's great to see. Wow, we've got so many people already here in the chat. A lot going on in the world at the moment. I went through and caught up a bunch of news stories and put on Blue Sky earlier. But yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. If I put on this angle, I get the background that I like, whereas if I put it here, you get curtains. But there again, the lighting isn't as good on this angle just because of the setup of the room. But yeah, I hope that you can hear me okay. Let me just maybe elevate the mic a little bit so you can hear me a little bit more clearly. Yeah, great to see. We've got Believe in Yourself rocked in here first. In fact, if I do that, I'm going to adjust the camera there just a little bit. That's good. We've got the New Zealand Heimato over there. Got the Tokyo Marathon medal here. I didn't actually win it, but yeah, Hopi the Hopeful Giraffe from Ken Tanaka over there. Random picture from Hong Kong I get years ago. This all works pretty well. So Believe in Yourself first. Congratulations. Cobras Tenchi in here second. Not having cookies today. Instead having lemon cake soy yogurt instead, which... Whoops. Bumped the mute button there for a moment. Reminds me when I was in Seattle how much I love the yogurt there and the lemon flavor of that. We've got Sadiq in here third. Here's new tracks for tonight. Okay, Sadiq, looking forward to your suggestions on the after party, definitely. Steve Miller, the Voice of America, in here. The chat started early. Great to have you in the chat as always, and salutations to you. Uploading, Cobra Tenchi's been uploading videos from Japan last year, so people go check out Cobra Tenchi's channel if you want to check out those videos. How is making us, Dan H? Good to see you, Dan H. Nice to see we've got so many people in here. DJ Sunny Side Up, big announcement with regards to DJ Sunny Side Up, by the way, since you're there. Meet the man, meet the Afro. Sunny's going to be in Tokyo this week, and I've sorted out a nice little pizza place called Gonzo in Meguro, which I have done a kind of small booking. Whenever I've done sort of Tokyo meetups, they haven't really been very big. But that said, this Thursday is a public holiday. What is the holiday? Shundonehi, which I think is spring holiday or something like that. But yeah, if you actually want to meet up in person, I check with Sunny. And so, yeah, people who are resident in Tokyo and would like to do a meetup and maybe go to karaoke after, if you ever want to see me at karaoke, well, even if you don't want to see me at karaoke, I've only booked the lunch. We'll see where we go from there. Sunny's keen on karaoke, and hell, I'll go do that. But yeah, if you're around in Tokyo and you're free on the public holiday this Thursday, midday, I've set up in the link below the video a Facebook event page where just let me know and I'll make sure that there's enough of a space on the booking, and come and join us. We can have pasta, pizza and salad and say hello in person. So that'd be great. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this week for the first time, I think, DJ Sunny Side Up, and to meet your mum as well, visiting Tokyo. So looking forward to that. So yes, if you're interested in coming, use the Facebook page thing just so I can make sure that we've got enough space. And if needs be, I mean, I think it should be manageable at a little Italian restaurant, but if it gets bigger than that, we can adjust as well. So yeah, do RSVP for that. Or just ping me and let me know if you're not on Facebook or whatever, just so that I know. But it'd be great to see not just DJ Sunny Side Up, but yeah, anyone else who's just happens to be free at midday and is in Tokyo. It would be cool to see you all. Lara, great to see you, Lara, who I think is in Tokyo as well. So it would be awesome if people can make it along. Good evening. More tracks, says Sadiq. Yes, looking forward to those. Dan H, interested in the editing process for Cobras, as am I. Be good to see that. Is there anyone here? Yes, I am here, Sadiq. We can hear you. Everybody's here. We've got Shubas in from Panama. Hoi hoi, everybody. Good morning to you. Aloha, says Tudom. Is Tudom in Hawaii, or are you just feeling like greeting in Hawaiian mood? I should say kia ora, which... yeah, aloha, kia ora is aloha in Maori, although actual similar Polynesian languages. In New Zealand, we don't say aloha, but we have A-R-O-H-A, aroha, which means love. So there you go. Still sounds good. We've got Miss Cordy Chip in here. Good to have you in here as always. Got a coffee, Shuba's coffee kampai indeed. Coffee's going everywhere. Coffee indeed, says Steve Miller, who I think is probably early in the morning in the US. So good time for coffee over there. It's a big go. I was actually on time. It's 30 degrees Celsius at midnight in March in Australia. Whereabouts are you? You're in like South Australia, aren't you? That's kind of insane. 30 degrees at midnight. And in March, although I guess it is also cold here at this time of year. 22 degrees there in Panama. That sounds a lot more reasonable there. Rainy season. We're kind of having a rainy season in Tokyo at the moment. It's raining at the moment, and it will be raining for most of this week by the looks of it. March is a time of year where you've got the pollen going everywhere. You've got temperatures going up and down. We were so lucky. I got the Tokyo Marathon 20 degrees, which for me was nice. It wasn't too hot. The day before it snowed, that's literally what it's like this time of year. So yeah, and we've got rainy season to look forward to in May in Japan. So enjoy that there in Panama. Hopefully it means less bugs and a bit of cooler weather. But yes, roll call from Believe in Yourself. Great to see. We've got Quint Rankid. Nice to see you, Quint Rankid. Good to have you in here. And who else we got in here? We got a big good morning from the moderator, from Aaron. Great to have you in here. Welcome as always. Wow, we've got everybody here. Anyone else got hay fever? It's really bad for you. If you've got hay fever in Japan at this time, it's as bad as it can be. The hay fever is insane. In fact, the rain is probably good for that sort of a thing. So yeah. Seb, great to see you. Yo, right back at you. Wow, I've got tons of people, already 20 people watching at the moment. The mic echoes. Is the mic echoing? Is anyone else hearing my mic echo? Quickly checking. It should not be echoing. I'm only using one thing for it at the moment. Yeah, Sadiq, I hear that. People ping right now if it's echoing. It's echoing for Sadiq. Maybe Sadiq has two windows open. I don't know. But if it's actually me echoing, slightly. The mic is fine for Mr. Cordy Chip. No echo. No. Dan H is slightly echoing. Most people are not echoing. I'm not saying this just to trigger comments either, although it's triggering a bunch of comments. Yeah, maybe two windows open. It should not be doing that. There's nothing else open on the PC. In fact, just to be double sure, I'm going to shut down the camera management stuff. Sadiq, how did you fix it? Okay. Now I'm most intrigued. Now that Sadiq has fixed it, now I'm wondering how it's slightly echoing for Dan. Okay, let me go back up to the greetings anyway. But thanks for calling that out. Technical issues are a feature of the show, as you know. We are all a collective technical support. That's what we do. Pollen season indeed over here. Greetings from Summery Athens. Summery Athens already? Wow, your real summer's going to suck if it's already summery at the moment. I wish I was there eating your food at the moment. Nice to have you as always checking in from Greece. We've got Whoop says DJ Sunny Side Up. I believe that's reacting to the meetup that we've got. Anyone Swordfish, great to see you. Question for me. In Europe, we are starting to realize that we had to create our own cloud infrastructure like AWS and so on, messaging, app, and other tech. Do I think Japan already has this or is busy with it? I work in a field very close to this, which means I can actually answer privately. I could write you a book about this subject. But no, in Japan there are domestic clouds. There Sakura Internet provides cloud for government, although they've had some problems. They're not a hyperscale cloud. They just provide leased data centers and stuff, and they lost a ton of data for the Ministry of Education. Fujitsu has tried and kind of not really succeeded at creating its own domestic internet. In Japan, there isn't. Yeah, there's basically at the moment as I understand, the big four cloud companies. I think Oracle, Microsoft, AWS, Google. They're all here, and there's a couple of domestic players of Fujitsu and Sakura Internet. There are some new like AI specialist clouds coming up and some other ones. There isn't quite the view I think that there is in Europe that there needs to be, although there's definitely, the Japanese government is definitely hoping that a Japanese company is going to come through, but a lot of Japanese companies, Japan has great trade ties with America, so it's not so put out by the idea of foreign companies coming and being successful in Japan. So yeah, there isn't quite the urgency of trying to make sure that the Americans are the things that like Europeans worry about American companies being in Europe and handling Europeans' data. That's not the same concern, although there is a nationalist concern of just about making sure that tech is something where Japanese companies are successful and trying to leave a space for that. So yeah, there's things coming up, but I don't think there's anything rivaling the hyperscalers anyway. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but yeah, anyone swordfish. I could always talk privately about this sort of thing in a lot more detail. The short answer is nothing like in Europe. And Europe has a bunch of again, smaller sort of cloud companies, and I think that right now the EU is trying to support those. But yeah, no one's quite up to the global players, is my understanding. Anyway, we're gonna whoop. You're playing Whoop There It Is at Eon today. Wow, I love Whoop, as you know, because I play it on the after party all the time. I mean, Whoop There It Is. Everything about it is perfect. The bass line is perfect. The beat is perfect. The lyrics are perfect. It's just about the perfect. It's one of the greatest songs of all time, that and least acknowledged. That and Big Booty Bitches, which for some reason was getting recommended to me on the algorithm the other day. It's like 13 years old at the moment, and it still is one of the greatest YouTube videos of all time. But Whoop There It Is, classic. Wow, they're playing that at Eon. Yeah, I would have trouble controlling myself as well. But I think that people digging the shirt. Yeah, when I was last in New Zealand, I wanted to get a T-shirt. I'm in New Zealand, so I got Kia Kaha brand. This is yeah, in New Zealand these are korus, which people get as moko, as tattoos. So if you ever see someone with a tattoo with these little these represent like fern coils. If you ever see people with these sort of tattoos, it's one of the things that oh, that's a Kiwi, you know. And if you're not a Kiwi and you have a tattoo with this on, everyone goes like, when Mike Tyson got a tattoo with these things on his face, a whole bunch of Maori people got pissed off, like, you're not a Maori, you're not supposed to do that. I don't know how it really goes for Caucasians. I think you'd assume if someone who looked like me had that and they're from New Zealand, you assume that they were part Maori. But yeah, they're awesome designs, right? I've got tons of t-shirts with these. It's you know, something that's cool about and unique about New Zealand. So yeah, I saw this and I was like, that shirt looks cool. So I got it. Thank you for the compliment. I like the shirt as well. Sydney. Oh, Sydney's in the middle of a heat wave. That sucks. Yeah, that's maybe that's why Penrith lost to Sydney City Roosters the other day. That was I mean, I only watched the highlights, but that looked like it was a great game. Everybody remember to like. We've got so many people watching at the moment. Remember as well, this will be an important theme for the show today. I'm not asking for money. I deliberately go through the settings to not monetize these videos so that you don't have to see ads, just in exchange for the likes. I will never ask you for money, which is going to be extremely relevant to the crime news today. But there we go. We've got everybody saying no echoes. We've got Eric Bailey in here. Rainy season in Kanto sucks, but it's good practice for monsoon season. That it is, Eric Bailey. Well said. Yes, and that is we are far away from that, but right now we're just in the sucky season. We're just in the season where the weather is just terrible all the time. How is everybody at the moment? It is Northern Hemisphere, of course, it is coming into spring. Southern Hemisphere, it's getting into autumn, but somehow they're having a heat wave in Sydney, so that is a concern. But there we go. That is a great comment by Eric Bailey. If you haven't said hello, say hello. I love when people say hello. I do appreciate it. It's great to see who's there. Even if you're a lurker, even if you're always lurking and you never say hello before, just like hit the space bar, be mysterious, and leave a comment there, and I will flash it up on screen. Just it's nice to know that you're there. But yeah, I was actually going through and there was a surprising number of comments. So let's go through. Oh, it's not actually queued up on my topics on my feed. So let's do that. Whoops. Oh, profile. Okay. By the way, someone asked me today, am I not on Twitter anymore? Yeah, to which I am on Twitter. There's actually some people, most of the people I really like from Twitter moved to Blue Sky. Plus, Elon doged all the integrations that Twitter has with services like Flipboard and so on, which made it useful for me. And Blue Sky actually has all those connections working. So to me, you know, all the things that I liked about Twitter are Blue Sky, including a lot of the people that have moved across there. That's why I'm on there. It's the easiest to use. It's the easiest to share things. It integrates with Feedly really well. You get slightly more characters. That's why I am on Blue Sky. I am not off Twitter. In fact, I still go onto Twitter because there are some people that I like to follow that are only on Twitter, and I like to check in. And frankly, there still is. I mean, you know, most news sources, most public figures are over there, so I do check in on Twitter. But between being busy and Elon losing his mind slightly, it seems, lately, and everything else. I feel less motivated to post over there, to be honest. But I am on there, and I'll post there during the week for people who are worried about that. So I'm not completely off it. But there we go. Everybody being here being tech support. We've got BDBGP. Great to have you. How you feeling? How you living? I'm living good, and I'm feeling good. Thank you for asking. Hope you're living and feeling good right over there. DJ SSU, BI yourself. I don't know my anagrams. There we go. Too close to home. Cloud is pretty close to home, actually. But yeah, anyone swordfish. If you ping me offline, I can tell you more. But honestly, it's pretty much just like I told you. It's not like in Europe anyway, the demand for it. But yeah, small world, says DJ Sunny Side Up. Where did I get what? Oh, the shirt. I got it at the airport in Auckland when I was coming back from New Zealand to Japan. What did I think about the big changes happening to Japanese corporate boards? Do I think this is just to appease investors? You mean, for example, Nissan appointing, I believe, was it a Mexican now head of that? Definitely partly it's to appease investors, particularly companies that don't know how to deal with more activist investors. Companies are so used to having like captive investors or cross shareholdings where they just do deals with each other to not bother the leadership of other companies and so on. So with foreign shareholders now, foreign investors being more important, I suppose that's part of it. It's also part of the fact that the Japanese economy is shrinking and it doesn't have much in the way in front of it. So most Japanese companies, large successful Japanese companies, probably know that their overseas operations are actually key to the survival of their businesses. So it's not just to appease foreign investors, but also to appease Japanese investors that are worried that the companies that they're, don't have, like Nissan, don't have an international strategy that will work. So it could be all of those things, but there again, I'm not inside of their brains. It certainly isn't a DEI thing anymore, although I don't think there's been quite the backlash against the whole concept of DEI here that there's been elsewhere. Yeah. I think it's always based fundamentally on practicality. Aaron, it won't let you comment with spaces, and then Quint Ranked immediately comments with a space and proves Aaron wrong. So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, Toyota, Panasonic, Nissan. I mean, I think they've all got different sort of reasons for that. But there we go. Quint wins the internet. He does. Only spaces. Okay, everybody's trying that. Maybe a tab. A tab. Yeah, a tab would be a good way to do it. DJ Sunny Side Up. Would I ever get a tattoo? Would I? I don't have a tattoo. Would I ever get a tattoo? No. The thing is, I know myself well enough to know that any tattoo I would have gotten when I was like 23, I'd probably regret by now. And I'm pretty sure any tattoo I get now, I'm going to hate when I'm 70 or something like that. So I think, and you know what? I'd be disappointed in myself if I still liked it. One thing I like about myself is my eclecticness. The fact that I'm always picking up new things and into new things, and my tastes change. And I expect that. I don't expect to be the sort of person who maintains a rigid identity about anything forever. So in that regard, I don't really like I don't like the permanence of a tattoo. I don't even like, I rent houses. I can't even, handle the idea of a mortgage, let alone a tattoo. So that's just me. And being tattoo free is relatively works for me. Would I ever get that said, I can appreciate when I see cool tattoos on other people. I like tattoos on people. Oh, that's a cool tattoo. Just like I appreciate people with good hair. Actually, sometimes I see people with good hair, man. But do I have to have it too? No, I can appreciate that things can be good on other people. If it was socially acceptable to get those sort of temporary tattoos, but then even then, would I do it? If it was socially like not weird to get like a temporary tattoo, and I was playing rugby or something like that, and get a Mario tattoo like this, and then the next week for it to be gone, maybe. But yeah, I mean, okay, like my watch, right? You might have noticed, I change my watch color every couple of days. I don't know if you can see this. These are my watch bands. I've got 20 colors of different watch bands. I change these things every day because I don't even want to see the same color on my arm, even though I picked white. I picked the most boring color, but that was just because I've been having really bright colors lately. I don't even want to see the same color armband for 2 days in a row. So a tattoo, no, it just doesn't jive with my brain. But it looks cool. I'm not against tattoos at all. They're cool on other people, but yeah. The world don't move to the beat of just one drum. What might be right for you might not be right for some. As a great philosopher once said. Bald lives matter, damn straight. Anyway, let's get into the topics. You watch another attorney who is really into wristwatches. An attorney who's into wristwatches? Who is that? I work with an attorney who wears 2 wristwatches all the time, and neither of them tell the correct time. And I mock him mercilessly for it, but he actually enjoys it. So yeah, maybe there's a thing with lawyers. Well, we do charge by time, at least when we're working in law firms. So there we go. Tattoos are expensive. If you want to get a cheap one, there's something wrong. That is absolutely as well. That's another thing. That's something that I do believe. If I am going to get something that's permanent, or something like a wallet or a keyboard, if you're going to get something that you're going to use all the time, invest in getting a good one. Don't go cheap on something that you're going to have to look at every day. Absolutely. Uncivil law. Okay, I should look that up. Thank you for the suggestion. It is 10:51. Time for the topics. Anyway, let's do that. So Japan, Ishiba, Japan's finally getting around to updating the slave labor, the foreign slave labor scheme that they've been running since Abe, which is responsible for an explosion in foreign residents in Japan, albeit on crappy jobs. However, I've commented on it many times here how it's basically being run as a sub minimum wage slave labor scheme, where people who run away from oppressive bosses and abusive bosses are literally treated like runaway slaves in the 19th century in certain parts of certain countries. It's been sort of awful, and it is the abuse that foreigners have received under the current system has been subject to both human rights and United Nations and diplomatic scrutiny against Japan. So, however, Japan does need foreigners. So they need foreign workers. So the government is revamping the scheme to make it one where where workers who are needed to cover labor shortages in certain sectors can continue to be hired, and where when they are here for more than 3 years, there is a path to upgrading to more permanent skilled worker visa. When they say more permanent, I assume they mean more long-term rather than more permanent. I don't think you get permanent residence directly offered, but it gives you a path to being on regular working visas and stuff like that basically give you a path to staying in Japan, which the country absolutely needs. I see. So the second visa, skilled workers. Okay, of the specified skilled worker visa are eligible to work in 16 industries struggling with severe labor shortages, including nursing, construction, agriculture, and so on. And first you get 5 years in the country, while after that you get unlimited renewals, including a path to permanent residency and being able to bring children and spouses to Japan. So Abe, I've always said people said Abe was a racist, and Abe did say that he was against immigration to solve the demographic crisis, but at the same time, he oversaw like a doubling of the foreign population in Japan, so he couldn't have been that racist. But there again, the way that he did it with this visa scheme, like really did treat foreigners that were coming in under it as literally second class sort of residents. This addresses some of the flaws in that initial scheme. We'll see how it goes in implementation, but yeah, it's good to see. A neurotic lawyer. Wow, so you watch 2 neurotic lawyer channels. That's good to know. So what else have we got here? It's good that they're updating that. Interesting one here that fewer than half of people in Japan can remember family cell numbers. I do remember during the earthquake in 2011. Now, what was the story with that? Mobile phone networks did not work. Landlines worked because no one uses landlines anymore. So when I tried to call, all the cell phones were sort of jammed right after the quake. And at that time, my wife was working in one place and my son was at home being babysat by his grandmother. He was like 1 year old at the time. He was homesick. And so, yeah, I'm coming to think of it, I didn't have to look it up on my phone, but for some reason there was some sort of situation there that I did have to remember the phone number. And I think it was actually the experience of under pressure, remembering the mobile phone number during the quake and realizing. and kind of guessing what it was and being right. That experience burned that phone number into my head, as that's, obviously family emergency phone number. But yeah, it's true. And it's also funny. A lot of people are commenting in response to this. The only numbers that people know are, their mothers and parents sort of phones and so on. That's probably true. I know my mother's, again, my mum's phone in Australia. I know because basically I knew that from, and it hasn't changed since before I ever owned a cellular phone. And yeah, some people commenting here that they can recite the numbers of friends from when he was a kid more than 70 years ago, but only has 2 current numbers. And I'm in exactly the same situation. I still remember, actually, I used to live in an army camp, which I think only had about 5,000 people in it. And my phone number, 56828. There was a joke, actually. I remember New Zealand, a lot of New Zealand towns have very short phone numbers. Like I think there were even some 4-digit phone number places. I remember seeing an American comedian in New Zealand doing a thing saying, you guys have small towns here. I was doing a stand-up in the bar, picked up a girl, asked her what her phone number is, and she said 4. So yeah, we always had easy to remember phone numbers in New Zealand. That was true, but it's a sign of the times. But still, it used to be a thing, right? That when I was in high school, you would like have in your head memorized 10, 20 phone numbers of people, But there again, I just suppose not something that you need anymore. But sometimes you're filling out forms. Sometimes, having to look up your cellular phone as a phone directory. Sometimes there's situations where, yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't come up often, but yeah, it's a good reminder, I suppose. I think it just reflects it's not as important anymore. I mentioned last week, more than 80% of people still support the death penalty in Japan. Hey, people want it. It's there. What's interesting is that while support for the death penalty as unavoidable has increased, not quite to its highest level, its highest was in 2011, also the number of people who think it should be abolished has also, there's less ambiguity now. People who don't know or don't care. The number of people who said it should be abolished has also increased to the highest level ever level. And this is because we've had cases like the boxer who was acquitted after being on death row for, a couple of decades. So reasons for people who support abolishing the death penalty, mainly the possibility of wrongful sentencing. Some people saying that, it's actually better punishment to make them live to atone. For me, it's number 3. It's like you're carrying out the crime that you are punishing for. If murder's a crime, then the punishment is murder. To me, that itself is just if you have a concept of morality, of life being sacred. I mean, it's like if somebody chops off and you think of there's no other crime where you have the crime done to you as the punishment, right? For any other crime, unless a crime's the murder, it'd be considered uncivilized, right? Assault, rape, theft. If you chop off someone's arm, the state chopping off someone's arm would be considered barbaric, but killing them is okay. There's a logical inconsistency with that. And the other thing is, and this is why justice ministers in Japan, they support the concept that killers shouldn't be allowed to live, but at the same time, when they're actually confronted with being the ones to do the killing, when they actually have to sign the letter that says we're going to kill this person, that makes them the killer. And in that moment, I can't kill a person, even if it's just with a pen and paper. People find when they're actually saying, do you want to kill the specific person at this time and designate the time? Most justice ministers in Japan don't want to do it, but they all support the death penalty, and most people in Japan do. But it's because they're sort of disconnected. So long as somebody else does it and I don't have to think about it, they want it to happen. But this is where, most civilized countries in the world, with 2 really big exceptions, Japan and America, kind of have come to the conclusion that, we don't do the crime back to the people who did things. People who hit with cars, we don't hit them with cars as the punishment, right? We make them serve in appropriate sentence. But in Japan, it's pretty clear that everybody thinks, nope, they should be unalived, unalived. unlived, whatever they call it nowadays. So yeah, definitely Japan's not going to change. But there we go. To the contrary, the death penalty is legal killing as opposed to murder, which is unlawful. Well, okay, killing. So killing is wrong, and there's a ton of exceptions to this, including war and so on. But even then, I don't think we should be comfortable with the idea of righteous killing. I mean, there are, of course, there's self-defense and so on. But I don't think, intentional homicide, not as a crime, as a thing, a person killing a person. There's an idea. There's a school of thought in most countries in the world that the circumstances in which you allow that, including having the state do it, like as a punishment, should be minimized. Obviously, when it comes to Japan and America, I'm in the minority on this, but I am in the majority of Western countries. So, but I acknowledge being in the minority on this in Japan anyway. So there we go. Yeah. So Japan not changing on that. Toyota is apparently going to launch 15 zero-emission vehicles in Europe by next year. Now, someone commented that only 5 of these 15 are actually EVs, although I didn't see that in the article, although I did only skim it, I will admit. Let's see if they actually say, are these going to be these hydrogen cars, or are they actually going to be EVs? Yeah, I don't see any information on that. The way it's written implies it's going to be EVs, but someone says only 6 of them are EVs, though. So maybe that's the case. What's notable, of course, is that the flagship breakthrough Toyota EV was, of course, the very easy to remember name of the BZ4X, which does sound like one of those passwords recommended by Google for like logging into the Toyota website that they accidentally cut and paste as the model car. Notable, of course, for these cars, driving along, were randomly having their wheels separate from the cars. And, for all the problems that you'd expect of an EV, like, I don't know, batteries catching fire and exploding or not having range or something like that. I mean, wheels falling. Why is it that Toyotas are the best made cars in the world, except when they're EVs, and then the wheels fall off, and as defects go, it's a pretty serious defect. Toyota's had recalls over like brakes, possibly working too enthusiastically. That was disproven. They've got sort of, gearbox malfunctions, all these sorts of things, all these sorts of defects that exist. The wheels falling off is a pretty fundamental defect, and it's pretty hard to convince anyone that Toyota is taking EVs seriously when the EVs that they launched literally cannot keep their wheels on. That said, they are going all in Europe. Hopefully they'll make sure all the wheels are actually attached to the cars when they send them over there. And the thing is, right now, I've just even before the show, I was watching a thing on how Tesla is kind of collapsing at the moment under general backlash. And it was actually a really good summary. It is still growing in the UK because there's such strong incentives to buy EVs in the UK at the moment. But in America, all the states in America where Tesla's sold the best, by a factor of 3 or 4 over red states, are all blue states, right? They're all sort of 100% Democrats. Colorado, it's Washington, it's California, is where Tesla sells most of its cars. In Australia, sales are down 80%, and Scandinavia, they're down 70%. And in China, they're down as well, although they still sell almost as many cars in China as they do in America, but they're just being out-competed by Chinese EVs in China. So, yeah, all that people want. It's the same with like Starlink and so on at the moment with the sort of, with Musk coming out. Like, again, Tesla's are tanking in Germany because he came out for AFD. I don't know anything about German politics, just that people who don't like AFD really don't like AFD there. And again, it's generally liberals that tend to favor EVs. So everyone's just looking for positive alternatives. And it's like with Starlink, there's going to be alternatives coming out pretty soon. And already countries are trying to get off of Starlink because they see the political manipulation of that. So all people want, literally all that people ever wanted, all the EV owners wanted, everybody owned a Prius before, and all that they wanted is just a nice, well-made, good, reliable car with an electric motor. And everyone's been waiting and hoping that Toyota would be the one to provide it. And Toyota's just not been interested, and it's given away just such a business opportunity from not even trying to get into this. And when they did it, they made one with wheels that fall off. So I really feel like if anyone, I would say that Toyota have been their own worst enemy with regards to EVs, but there again, they haven't quite been doing what Tesla's been doing to their marketing, like literally campaigning against their own buyers. Yeah, it's all there for Toyota to take. So I do hope that they finally do actually release cool, reliable, well-made. I mean, even average Toyotas will just sell incredible. Just make them all Corollas. They'll sell incredibly well. But yeah. So Kerberos Tenshi, AFD is the legal version of the NSDAP, which became the MPD in the 90s and was eventually banned. Yeah. I mean, every country at the moment have different versions of, in Britain, the BNP was, I think that Reform and some of those parties have a lot of ex-BNP people, people from banned right-wing parties and so on. And look, in Austria, the sort of more legitimized right-wing parties have been very successful. So it's kind of, it's kind of happening everywhere that these people are rebranding and finding people who want to listen to them because of legitimate concerns that, for example, immigration hasn't been well managed and so on. I sort of get it. I do remember in Europe, if you're from Europe, one of the biggest banks in Europe is BNP Paribas, a French bank, and they used to sponsor my rugby team. So I had these rugby jerseys. They sponsored my rugby team. We had these jerseys made which had BNP written in huge letters across the front. And my somewhat left-wing sister saw me show up one day. I showed up wearing my team's rugby jersey with BNP written across the front. And being from the UK, all I know about BNP is that they're a French bank. But she saw it and knows them as the British Nationalist Party, basically the skinhead neo-Nazi political party that's banned, more or less. I was like, what are you wearing? So yeah, all the letters. But again, the point is, like, if you're a car company, probably not a good idea to associate with a fringe political of any type, right? Of any end of the spectrum. And Toyota hasn't done this. It's just they can't keep the wheels on the cars, which are just a fundamental function of cars. I mean, you talk about technical issues are a feature of this show, but they really shouldn't be. If the wheel, I mean, what would be the equivalent of the wheels falling off the stream? It would literally be my camera and microphone not working, and that's Toyota doing EVs at the moment. So they've set a low bar, which I hope that they will exceed. I really love to see Toyota do like a Toyota Celica or an old-fashioned, like a Mazda MX-5 type. Do something cool. Just put an electric motor in it and make it cool. How hard can it be? But yeah, anyway. Quinn Rankid, a little off topic. Have I heard of David Betts? I have not. And what he's predicting for the UK's future. Bad weather and bland food, I would imagine. I don't know. I have not. Quinn, feel free to put in some information in there. But yeah. I certainly Eric Bailey. It's absolutely clear at the moment that the what's happening at the moment in many countries is. By the way, the term liberal, I hate. It's an American term for left-wingers, whereas it actually means right-wingers in most English-speaking countries. But besides that small thing, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like the intolerance of people who are intolerant. There's no question what's happening right now, including the anti-DEI and anti-woke thing, is clearly a backlash against overreach from people on the West feeling entitled to suppress voices that they disagree with. And yeah, that should have happened. But yeah, civil war in the UK. Oh God, this isn't one of those people that I thought Elon was predicting a civil war in the UK, wasn't he? Which I don't see how that's possible. But yeah, no, that's probably why I don't know him anyway. Quinn Rankid, you send more letters, then make a phone a year. Yeah. Bentley a few years back. You know what? But Bentley, speaking of UK Civil War, here's why UK Civil War won't work. Because all, whether it's the Bentleys or the Land Rovers or whatever that they're showing up in, all the wheels will fall off before they actually get to the fight. I think that's part of the design. It's a mechanism that the UK uses to prevent civil war. You kind of, you expect that even from Bentleys, even though they're luxurious cars, they're handmade British cars. So, how much you're still going to expect them to leak, and the resale values on Bentleys, they sell for $500,000, and then 10 years later they're like $30,000. So Toyotas were, on the other hand, 10 years later are like $1,000 less than they were when they sold. So I would still expect more from that, but there we go. Anyway, back into the topics. Apparently, over 3 million people gambling online in Japan, in spite of the fact it's illegal. Maybe someone should tell the police that pachinko exists in Japan, and there's probably like 20 or 30 million people who play it and suffer chronic gambling addiction and ruin their lives over it. And just because the police accept the tuck shop system, where you can exchange your plastic trophies for cash in the shop beside the place, how you can have an entire long article talking about gambling in Japan and the problem of online gambling and the degree of addiction being as high as 60% of participants, and mentioning that lotteries, including betting on public races such as horse, bicycle, boat, and motorcycle racing, are legal in Japan, and never mentioning that, you've got this problem of 60% of 3 million people doing online gambling in Japan suffering social problems because they're addicted to it. And yet 20 million people are addicted to pachinko and ruining their lives over it. So that's always an interesting one. I don't think pachinko is anywhere near as politically powerful as it once was, nor is it as completely aligned with the ethnic Korean community that it used to be, which is how they had so much political power. They would fund funds into politicians who would sort of protect the industry for them. But yeah, it is still funny how people in the press, I think they will be accused of press will be accused of racism for criticizing pachinko. That would certainly happen in the past, for pointing out the fact that it's illegal. But I don't think it should be that sacred anymore. But anyway, Sainted Sir, good morning, New York City. Great to have you in the chat. And Mike Zilla, we've got Mike Zilla in here. Boom, where's Mike Zilla? There's Mike Zilla. Just popped into the chat. What things is Hiko buying and that are worth $500,000? I'm not buying. I just watched Doug DeMuro videos. I haven't owned a car. The only car I have ever owned in my life was a British car, which is how I know the wheels fall off. It was a 1975, I believe it was a 1975 Triumph Dolomite. Classic car, 4-door. It had been involved in a serious head-on crash, which had bent the chassis on the driver's side so that the wheel on the side nearest me was 10 centimeters further back than the other wheel, which meant if you ever let go of the steering wheel, the car would veer, which for me would be to the right, into oncoming traffic, which meant at all times you had to be steering slightly away from oncoming traffic while going straight. It leaked oil, it leaked brake fluid, and they couldn't replace the brake drums anymore because, of course, they didn't make the car anymore. And I did have the joy of discovering what happens one day when I was going through the traffic lights. It was like in the movies. I tapped the brakes, and I had no brakes because all the brake fluid had drained out while I was driving. And fortunately, my house at home was on a hill, so I could get home, slow the car down enough, get out and stop it by hand. But yeah, I believe me, I hold Toyota to a slightly higher standard of construction, but I do love my cars, and this is why I got into Turo so much in America. And yes, I don't have anything worth $500,000, however. Pachinko became deaf indeed. Yes, back in what else we got here? Yeah, Starlink. So basically everyone in the Pacific getting Starlink, which, by the way, Starlink is awesome. SpaceX is awesome. I love SpaceX. I love the people at SpaceX and what they do. I love what Starlink is. My dad uses Starlink, and I love it. I'm also very glad to see that there is, I think, a European version of Starlink going up in the next year or so. There's also, of course, the Amazon Kuiper version of it going up soon. So hopefully we'll have a lot of choices for Starlink, so that, hearing the stories about just how Elon decided in the middle of an attack, he was personally called up by someone from the Russian government, and actually, Elon personally sabotaged attacks to liberate Crimea from Russian occupation early on in the war. The fact that you got a person who's using a communication service on a whim like that, to sort of decide what countries can and can't do in self-defense, to me is and I think Italy and Venezuela, was it Venezuela? It wasn't Venezuela. Was it Mexico? I think it was Mexico canceled their big telecommunications Starlink contract, and others are just because they're finding his political associations too much at the moment. But there will be more choices soon that there are not at the moment. That said, it is wonderful technology, and I really, really love the engineers that made it. And I'd be a big fan. Like I say, if he never said or did anything, I'd be, in public, I'd be a huge fan. It's a great service. Super interesting story here that I didn't know anything about that was featured by the Mainichi. Interesting context here. So, apparently, so as you may or may not know, it was 80 years since recently had in early March 1945 we had the so I think during this week there was the Tokyo firestorm, which basically in a single night killed more people than either the Hiroshima or Nagasaki bombs. Both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atom bombs killed people. It wasn't just the radiation did kill people, but the explosions triggered firestorms in those cities. That it was those firestorms that that led to so much death. In particular, that's what made them so destructive. Now, of course, that was one bomb from one plane that did that. Whereas the Tokyo firestorm involved 300, I believe it was mostly B-29s that were dropping incendiary bombs. The whole thing with that as well, super interesting. This time of year, but even through most of the year, Tokyo, because it's surrounded by really high mountains, the air all gets compressed going over the mountains, which creates a high altitude jet stream of high speed air. It means that whenever you fly into Japan, it's always like you have really bumpy, turbulent sort of entrance into Japan. Because at high altitude, Japan has a really powerful jet stream over it, which meant that high altitude, like precision bombing, the Allies found during World War II was impossible. They'd try to aim for a factory from a safe height. The bombs would get blown way, way off course. They couldn't bomb accurately. So they sort of switched, and flying low was too dangerous. So the Americans sort of decided, okay, new tactics. We're going to just focus on wiping out entire areas, entire blocks of the city without sort of aiming for specific targets. So they literally switched to, as we all know, they switched from trying to just target military targets to just kind of saying, okay, we can't do that. We're just going to make them surrender by just killing as many people as possible and going for our military targets by just wiping out the entire blocks of the city that they're on. So they actually switched to dropping incendiaries that were designed to create firestorms to destroy entire cities with civilians in them. And this required the kind of dehumanization of Japanese, which American propaganda did. All the propaganda that the Japanese were sort of brainwashed fanatics, and everyone was sort of working for the military, and everyone in Japan was a legitimate military target, and every city was a legitimate military target. This was part of sort of how the mentality was done of the propaganda in World War II to justify sort of the same sort of area bombing that until that point had been, even within World War II context, the Nazis' attacks on, the air raids on Guernica, the Japanese raids, or air raids, the similar sort of blitzkrieg tactics in China were sort of agreed to be war crimes when they were done. But when the sort of, accurate bombing wasn't possible in Japan, they switched to the sort of area bombing. And when they did it over Tokyo, in a single night, 100,000 people were slaughtered. In the history of warfare, it's one of those things that if it wasn't done by us, we would certainly have considered it a war crime when we did it. There were 300 planes that were involved. Apparently, only one of those planes was shot down or caught in the fire and caught fire. And apparently, the only plane that didn't come back from that bombing raid, a B-29, crashed 40 kilometers north of Tokyo in Ibaraki Prefecture. And there were 3 survivors of that plane. And it's something that happened in Japan when you had particularly these bombings of just civilian, and listen, the firebombing bombing raids were straight up just intentional slaughters of civilians. All the arguments, it was a different time and people thought differently and there were different standards and, there was no choice and it was to save American lives and all those things you can say. But to people on the ground, there were often summary trials done on the ground for war crimes against those people for killing civilians. And a lot of the pilots were killed. And it was the actual killing of those pilots by trial, like immediately sort of kangaroo courts that were set up when they were captured as POWs. That itself was treated as a war crime, and people responsible for killing those the surviving air crews were themselves prosecuted as war criminals after the war. But you have a situation here where you've got a plane crash after participating in a murder of 100,000 people 40 kilometers away. And apparently a lynch mob came for the crews and they were defended by some locals who remembered basically standing between a mob wanting to get them. And apparently, of the 3 survivors, one of the survivors was executed. 2 others were put into a POW camp in Tokyo, where they were later killed in another American raid on Tokyo. So all 3 of the survivors ended up dying. But apparently, there was a big thing where when a lynch mob came for one of the planes that was downed, some local residents of Matsudo, which actually is now Chiba. That's right. I know that area. So yeah, there's a story here about a guy who sort of witnessed some of his family standing up to protect the three airmen who had been downed from that. There's a thing in my head, imagine to there is a parallel. These are, this is like SS running to me, running a death camp. The people who have just fresh come back from participating in the slaughter of 100,000 civilians and people wanting to get them for it, and some people defending them. It does say something about, the people and the humanity that existed on the Japanese side, that there were people willing to sort of stand up to protect the air crews. There again, I mean, where I grew up, it was absolutely a given that, the air crews were just doing military missions, and that, they should have been protected and treated as, protected prisoners of war after. But there was a view during the war, which I can kind of understand, especially someone who's lived in Japan most of my life now. But yeah, these people, if they're committing war crimes on your soil, you can treat, was Japan wrong to treat them as war criminals? The whole strategy was a kind of, even by the standards of the time, was a war crime. But yeah, obviously the first rule of war is not to lose, and the Americans didn't break that one. So in the end of the day, interesting story. I did not know that there was that one of the planes from the Tokyo firestorm actually came down, and crew was recovered alive, but none of them survived to the end of the war. So yeah, really interesting one. Anyway. Yeah, well, this is the other thing. I mean, there's all sorts of, again, people had so demonized the Japanese as well that, again, the presumption of brutality was also there. No question, though, that said, surviving prisoners of war, well, so many people just died, in the custody of, many New Zealanders and Australians died, of course, in, Southeast Asia and so on, in Japanese custody. So certainly Japan was famous, was absolutely not great with its prisoners of war either. And again, many war criminals were prosecuted associated with the Japanese treatment of POWs. But there is a question about, to me, it's kind of crazy that, not only did they capture some of these people, but some people actually stood up trying to protect them as well. That's kind of, to me, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, if you want to write the history, you better win. Hot Shots, Lloyd Bridges in Hot Shots. You'll do this settle this the old Navy way. First one to die loses. It's kind of like that with war, isn't it? So yes. Interesting one here. There's a panic happening in Japan because apparently VHS cassettes that use magnetic tape, the last cassettes that went out, apparently the magnetic tapes generally should lose their magnetism and become completely unreadable by 2025. So a lot of services are saying that you better convert all of your VHS videos to DVD-R before the end of this year, or you'll lose your VHS tapes forever. I don't know if this is just a huge ploy to sell DVD-Rs, because I don't know who uses DVD-Rs anymore either. But it's an interesting question, because you think, hell, I mean, I thought that digitizing my photos and, my photo albums and putting them onto GeoCities meant that they would live forever. Whether it's on your computer, or whether it's, on some file sharing service, or, whether it's a cloud storage, or whether it's a DVD-R or a cassette tape or whatever, it's this kind of, everyone has this idea that things are going to, I remember CDs when they released compact discs, and there was this idea they are indestructible. And they will last for, up to 20,000 years, preserving, perfect quality music. And then, everybody bought these things and didn't handle them properly. As soon as they got a little bit scratched, like somebody would sneeze on a CD and it would start skipping and become unreadable. So, all the beliefs that we have in like permanent data, media are kind of exaggerated. And to me, this sounds like a ploy to sell remaining DVD-R stocks. But yes, so a bit of a push for that. This was also on the Itai News site, which aggregates most popular comments from the Japanese sort of version of Reddit, Nichan. Some people saying, "Whoa, I didn't know that they still had DVDs." And this person's pointing out, yeah, I mean, even if you put it on a hard disk, hard disks in time themselves, the magnetic hard disks still break down over time. Shobus used ICQ back in the day. Hey, me too. I think everybody did back in those days. ICQ, I was sure it was going to last forever. So, yeah. Anyway, lots of people people wondering if DVDs could even read DVDs anymore. Like it certainly is ending that. Terabytes of data on your network attached storage. That's a good move, Shubhas. But again, even that, yeah, it's we'll have to figure out a solution for that. I've heard that people talking about making like little optical cubes and so on. There's all sorts of solutions to this. But yeah, apparently, when the White House press secretary pointed out that Japan has huge tariffs on rice, I think 700% or something. Although there is a huge threshold under which there are no tariffs. It's only if they exceed that threshold, and Japan's never exceeded the threshold, which triggers the tariff threshold. But quoted by America that oh no. So before that, when the rice thing is coming up, but Trump also pointing out it's clear that Japan is engaging in trade unfairness because look, Japanese aren't accepting American cars. Why aren't they accepting American cars? So people responding, because they're fat and big and in the way. This person's saying, yeah, it's a problem that they're not very appealing. Some people saying that don't half of them have the steering wheel on the wrong side and they won't adjust it to sell to Japan. Another person saying, hey, if you want to sell cars in Japan, make cars that you can sell in Japan. So basically everybody is pointing out that American cars are big, fat, and lazy and stupid. American cars, that's what they said. Why they're not doing with rice. Some discussion that with tariffs all removed, Californian rice. And by the way, I was a long advocate of this as well. I used to cook Australian grown Japanese type rice grown in Australia and New Zealand, and it was so much cheaper. I could get I get 20 kilo bags for it was like $20 New Zealand. For like $15, I could get a 20 kilogram bag of rice, which I would use for months, and it would taste perfectly fine. And I came to Japan, and for the same amount of money, you get like a 2 kilo bag of rice. And lately, it's like 5,000 yen for 5 kilograms. Whereas, if the American rice, Californian grown Japanese style rice, would be 1,295 without all the tariffs and subsidies. Some people pointing out that because Japanese farmers lately are deliberately, manipulating the price to gouge consumers in cities. Some people saying, hey, with Japanese farmers screwing us over on rice prices, they deserve this. We should let the Californian rice in. Other people saying, yeah, I mean, if it doesn't have pesticides and chemicals all over it and is safe, then absolutely, I'm fine eating foreign rice. Another person, however, saying, I don't care how much it costs, I don't want to eat foreign rice, which actually was a long thing. What really surprised me a few weeks ago on Twitter was when I sort of said, I'm pro allowing imports of rice. Some people pointed out, yes, Japan sees it as a national security matter, which it kind of is. It's a staple, although it's a declining staple. People are now eating bread more than rice in Japan. The lines, I believe, have crossed over for that. But also, it was kind of funny. It always used to be, no foreign rice will ever taste as good as Japanese rice. This was something I'd hear from my nationalist Japanese friends. But when I tweeted it on Twitter a few weeks ago, all these foreigners were responding, no, Japanese rice is far superior to the American brands of Japanese rice. The special sunshine that is over Japan just brings out different flavors. And certainly Japan-grown Japanese rice does taste wonderful, but not 5 times as expensive wonderful, if you ask me. So that was a thing. Kunrei, the most horrible form of romanization, where you write, instead of Shinjuku, you write Senjuku. And so on, which is basically the officially accepted form of romanization of Japanese words, but yet nobody uses because it looks stupid. So Shinjuku, which under the Hepburn romanization system is like, as you pronounce it in English, Shinjuku, would be Shinjuku in Kunrei, and Aichi would be Aiti. Now, I confess, however, when I am typing in Japanese, you can actually type Shimbun, Shimbun, as Sinbun, and it will come out exactly the same. And because Sinbun uses one less character, because you don't have to type that H, there are times like I write Aichi as Aiti, because TI is pronounced chi in Japanese. So you can sort of do that. I will type in Kunrei, I admit. But as a public-facing writing system, Kunrei should not only be abandoned, and it should be set on fire. I've said this before. Oh God, we've got like How many more stories here? I think. Okay. This guy, Tachibana Takashi, was attached with a machete. The person took a real good swing at him, but he only clipped his ear. So the guy was fine. He's basically a conspiracy theorist, like professional troll. So, yeah. Shouldn't happen, but kind of hard to feel too sorry for him. Descriptions of a black company, not racial. This is talking about companies that are abusive. There's a checklist here, and I quickly looked at the checklist, and this is exactly, I've done multiple jobs like this, but this is my first ever job in Japan doing IT. Long hours, yes, 80 hours overtime per month. I've done hours like that at a law firm and at an IT company. Lack of proper compensation. I never got overtime in my first company, and I worked weekends and to 1 a.m. every day. There were multiple people died and were hospitalized from overwork, absolutely. Discouraging complaints, pressure, intimidation tactics, absolutely, including once I had an employer reject my resignation. Fortunately, I'm a qualified lawyer, so I was like, what you're saying to me is irrelevant. But people get forced into that. Unpaid overtime. All my overtime was unpaid in my first job. I was classified as a new hire as a manager, so they wouldn't have to pay me overtime. That's now been made illegal. High turnover rates. More than half of my 100 co-hires quit in the first year. I stayed on for 3 years, but yeah, that was it. Excessive demands. May be expected to sacrifice personal time. Are you kidding? That's standard in Japan that you sacrifice personal time. Harassment, bullying, yes, all sort of standard. Loyal to the company mentality. I've never worked in a company that practiced any sort of loyalty to the company thing. That's kind of a stereotype of Japan, but I've not seen that. Gaman culture, absolutely seen, where, yes, seniority-based hierarchy. This is another one. I guess, yeah, that maybe bosses might be tough on that. Zero enforcement of labor laws, absolutely. Zero penalties, absolutely. Legal action, people don't know their rights. Stigma against job hopping is a thing in Japan. They'll look at people if you've changed a job once. One reason I stayed in my first job for 3 years was not wanting to have the appearance of having changed a job every year for 1 year, and I've seen that. So that is the thing. Final one I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to quickly recommend. There's a video here by a channel I discovered recently called Mujin, as well as coverage by Unseen Japan. People probably heard about the Ai Mogami live stream murder that happened this week. And I don't normally talk about crime news, especially, anything that feels close to home. This is a live streamer who came into Tokyo and live streamed herself going around different neighborhoods in Tokyo. And someone watching her stream came, met her at Takada no Baba and murdered her live while she was streaming. A horrific case, and sounds very much like the sort of typical, obsessed sort of fan or whatever coming and stalking and murdering like you hear. But apparently it's not as simple as that. And that's where these videos explain. It's kind of a complicated case. The murderer was a fan. He was a 42-year-old man who murdered a, attractive 22-year-old live streamer that he'd been following for a number of years. But apparently what had happened was, although the guy was unemployed and was living off, sort of welfare checks and so on, he had donated large amounts to her live streams, and she got in touch with him personally, and through the personal contact asked him to get more money. And he started taking out loans to donate money to her. And he sort of said, I'll give it to you, but I don't have much money, so I'll need you to pay me back. But, she's like, I'm having an emergency. I'm really embarrassed, but could you just give me money? So he did, and she never paid anything back. And when he said he couldn't pay any more, she encouraged him to go to loan sharks and get out loans, and still never paid him back. And eventually, 3 or 4 years ago, he took a court case out against her to get his money back. And the court found in his favor and ordered her to repay him, but she still didn't repay him. And she would go and do streams online playing poker and sort of mocking people, mocking him for trying to get the money back from her and stuff like that. So she was using tactics that are kind of abusive. Yeah, it seems like he probably had a mental, maybe a learning disability as well. But certainly, she would do all sorts of, and now the chat logs have been leaked from this. She was clearly abusive towards the guy who killed her. That said, of course, scamming people and psychologically abusing them is not as bad as murdering someone. So, it's like with the whole death penalty thing. Murder tops all else. No justification for murdering her. He did, but that said, it wasn't a simple case of an obsessed weirdo guy purely on its own. I mean, he was an obsessed weirdo guy, it seems, but he was also kind of, he was also a victim. They were victims of each other. So really complex and dark case, which is why all I ask for is likes. This is why I don't monetize. This is why you see no ads. It's why I will never ask you to take out loans from loan sharks and promise to pay you back and not do it. All I want is likes and chasing squirrels. So yes, grim indeed. But you know, like I say, all I live off appreciation. Appreciation is all that I require. So please do that. Remember, below the video, if you're in Tokyo and you'd like to meet up, I'm meeting DJ Sunnyside up. People in Tokyo, well, let's go grab a pizza in Meguro on Thursday at midday. It's a public holiday, so if you can do that, do that. I've set up a Facebook page, RSVP. If you're not on Facebook, just let me know. I'll adjust the booking to make it work. And yeah, love to see you there if you can make it. Be awesome to see you, DJ Sunnyside up. Can't wait for that. Otherwise, 22nd, next Saturday, 2.5 Voyages with Victor. We're doing another 2.5 Voyages, so look forward to that as well. Remember to leave a like. I won't ask you for money. All I'll ask you for is likes. Just do that. And I will see you all later. We've got Shubha says his own disconnected cloud. It's probably a good idea. After party coming up. I'm going to go set up. It'll be a couple of minutes. See you in the after party. Can't wait to hear Sadiq's new suggestions. And boom. Peace. 6 minutes over. Went quite long today. Yeah. See you later. Have a good one, everyone. 22 March, 2.5 Voyages. All the things. Meetup Thursday. Link below. After party. Boom, boom, boom. Fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. See you later.